5 years ago, I used to think I was wife material. I thought I was the full package and it was just every guy out there who needed to change and get over his fear of commitment. But I was wrong. I was not wife material yet. Not yet. I was almost there, but there were certain ways that I had to grow and change before I was ready to be in love and manifest my amazing boyfriend. My name's Eliana Camargo and I'm the Healing Fairy. So girly pop, listen up if you want to learn the tea all about how I had to change in order to become wifey material. Because I just want everyone out there to find love and manifest the relationship of their dreams. So when I was 23, I was freshly out of a relationship after being locked down for many years and I was ready to hoe it up. I wanted to experience the world. I didn't want to be locked down by anybody. I just wanted to date and have fun and sleep around. And I don't regret it at all. It was honestly, I had a lot of fun and great experiences and I feel like it shaped who I am today. It helped me learn about myself and grow and just experience the world, learn about the psychology of dating, which is definitely helpful for these videos that I make now for you guys. So I'm glad that I did it. But I realized that it stemmed from having a fearful avoidant attachment style. The anxious part of me constantly needed male validation, while the avoidant part of me deeply feared commitment. I did not want to get locked down again. I was so happy keeping guys at an arm's length and honestly thrived in situationships because I got a little taste of romance and male validation and just fun. But I didn't have to commit to them. I didn't have to build a life with them. I didn't have to be there for them emotionally and everything that comes with a relationship. But I did find that every time that I did like a guy and that I vibed with him and found myself contemplating, well, maybe this is someone that I could actually be in a relationship with and build and grow something with. Like, I want him to want me too. He was incredibly emotionally unavailable and not want to date me for longer than a month. That was a pattern that I was stuck in. I would date people for about 5 weeks and then it would end. And I kept having this pattern occur over and over again. Anytime I liked someone, they didn't like me back. And anytime someone wanted to be with me, I was not willing to go there with them. I did not want a relationship. I was very happy to keep them at arm's length. So after about a year of having fun and hoeing around, I eventually got tired of all these meaningless hookups and decided that I actually do want a boyfriend. I want to settle down. I want love. I want to build and grow something with somebody. And I had come across manifestation and heard that that was the reason why I was stuck in this pattern of only dating people for 5 weeks or only attracting emotionally unavailable people, and that I could manifest my way out of it. So I did all the techniques. I scripted and wrote down exactly what I wanted in a partner, with the number one quality being that he would be emotionally available. And I was so excited. I figured that it would take probably like 1 month tops before I met my husband. Well, about a month later, I did meet someone who had all of the very long list of qualities that I was looking for in a partner, except he wasn't emotionally available, even though it was the number one quality that I was looking for, which is so fun, so frustrating, which sent me down a very long healing journey where I went through many different phases, but it took about 4 years until I manifested the boyfriend that I am with now, that I love dearly, and he's fantastic and wonderful and has all of the qualities that I want in a husband, and is also very emotionally available and wants to build a relationship with me too, which is so wonderful. And it's so funny because looking back, I totally understand why I manifested this person 4 years ago who sent me down the healing journey. You know, you might be wondering, if I was trying to manifest someone who's emotionally available and then I found someone who was the complete opposite, then like, what the fuck is up with that? What is manifestation even real? Is it really just a toss of the dice and that most men are emotionally unavailable and it's just your luck until you find someone who does reciprocate? Well, looking back, I can totally see how at the time I thought that I was so ready to meet my husband, but I absolutely was not. And there was a reason why I was attracting these kinds of people into my life. And I understand now that the universe gave me this person. Let's give him a nickname so that we know who we're talking about when I reference this person. Let's call him Barry. So the universe brought Barry into my life because it needed to trigger me. That part of me that kept attracting these emotionally unavailable people had to be triggered in order to heal. And it was a very long healing journey. I don't think everyone is going to take as long to heal their attachment style or heal their emotional wounds and the things that attract undesirable circumstances. Not everyone's going to take as long as me to heal. Some people might take longer than me to heal. Some people might be able to manifest the one that they want within a month and be super blessed. There's all kinds of variables. There's all kinds of reasons why we take a long time to heal. But the foundation that I was coming from was not the most emotionally stable foundation. There was a lot of shit that I had to go through and heal. So here's what I learned in those 4 years of healing that turned me from a pick-me into a wifey. One of the lessons is that I had to learn how to be happy single. This is something I talk a lot about on this channel because I think it's so important. It's so foundational to who I've become today and being able to manifest the type of relationship that I have now. I had to stop seeing being single as a flaw. You know, when I was single by choice and dating around and didn't want to commit, I was totally fine. But I wasn't actually single. I was constantly going on dates with guys. So when I say being happy, being single, I mean being happy, not even going on any dates for maybe a year. I think there's been multiple periods where I haven't gone on a single date for around 11 months each. So like an 11-month chunk here, 7-month chunk here, 11-month chunk here. A lot of those 4 years was spent single. Some of it was spent dating various people for short periods of time, and I think that was also necessary. There was many different phases to this single period that I was in. But I used to think that being single was a flaw, or that it was a sign that I was not worthy of love. The fact that I didn't have an engagement ring on my finger as a symbol to show the world that I'm lovable, which is crazy. It's crazy to think about now. I really thought that because the universe hadn't brought me the one yet was because, not because I thought I was unlovable, but I thought that the universe thought that I was unlovable, if that makes any sense. That if I was worthy, then clearly I would have a man in my life. And because I didn't, that meant that the universe was punishing me. The universe thought that I was unworthy. I felt inferior. I felt like a lesser than person. I felt like I would be taken less seriously in the world. Like others would almost like pity me in a way, or like perceive me as less than because I didn't have a man in my life, which is all just so absolutely ridiculous. So I had to get to a point where I truly, deeply at my core, didn't see anything wrong with being single whatsoever, that I had no determination on my worth, that no one outside really gives a single flying fuck if you're single or not, unless they're interested in you, of course. Then they might care because they're like trying to slide in your DMs. But a powerful thing you can do is ask yourself the question, why am I single? And then let all of your limiting beliefs come up. You can journal them down and see what you really truly think about being single. And then reframe it so that when you answer this question, your answer is, I'm single because I'm single. Period. I am single because I'm single. I'm brunette because I'm brunette. Like, it doesn't have to mean anything. It's just the season that you're in, the chapter of the book of your life. And that chapter is just as worthy and just as good as any other chapter. And it's not because the universe doesn't think that you're undeserving of love, because you will find love if that's something that you want. You absolutely will find love if that's something that you want. But before that happens, you have to learn to truly enjoy your own company and be content being single. And that doesn't mean that you have to be super happy and over the moon every single day, because happiness is a fleeting emotion. There will be days that you feel lonely and you're really aching for this relationship, and that's totally okay. But you want to get to a point where that's not the majority of the days. The majority of the time, you're completely content. The same way that when you are in a relationship, there's going to be days that you spend apart doing your own thing. And in those days, you hopefully, if you're healed, don't have this agonizing ache where you just like want to be with them every second of every day. You're fine doing your own thing for a day. And you don't feel lonely, you don't feel longing. The same way that that's possible in a relationship, it's also possible when you're single. And so I had to learn how to live in that state the majority of my days. And the reason why that's necessary is because that's how you heal an anxious attachment style, or at least one component of healing it. Because when you're anxiously attached, your nervous system is essentially addicted to somebody else's presence and somebody else's attention, and perceiving your own life through the lens of them in a way. It gives you reassurance that you're worthy and you're loved. And so when you have an anxious attachment style and you're single, you're never truly single, as in solo, as in just yourself. If you're not currently talking to somebody, you're just in between phases of obsessing over somebody, or obsessing over this concept of a relationship and this concept of romance and love. You're either daydreaming about an ex, or daydreaming about the guy you're talking to on Bumble, or daydreaming about your future imaginary boyfriend. And very rarely daydreaming about yourself and your own life. You're not really alone with yourself. You're just waiting for that next person to regulate your emotions for you. And that's exactly why being single, intentionally single, is necessary for healing. Because you have to break that pattern. You have to teach your nervous system that you can self-regulate, and that your worth isn't tied to whether or not someone texted you back or not. It's about learning how to meet your own needs instead of outsourcing them to the nearest emotionally unavailable guy. And that's what being single taught me, is that my worth is not tied to being wanted and that I can meet my own emotional needs. What the universe taught me through bringing Barry into my life is that when your worth is constantly tied to validation from other people, or you're constantly craving romantic attention from other people, it's because you're being emotionally unavailable to yourself. And so the universe kept bringing me these emotionally unavailable people to be that mirror of how I was treating myself and to show me, hey, this is something that you need to heal if you want to get out of this pattern. Having that anxiously attached part of myself made those types of guys energetically attractive. It made me magnetically attracted to them. We would vibe. That's why it was so important for me to spend time single and heal my anxious attachment style, so that I would be less attracted to those emotionally unavailable people. Another huge thing that really did not make me wife material when I thought that I was I was definitely a pick-me girl. And I didn't realize it. Especially back then, we didn't really use that term back in 2019 so much. It was hard for me to be dating someone for, less than 5 weeks and see someone else who's attractive and not have a straying eye, not be like, oh, it sucks that I'm talking to Bobby over here because Jimbo, great names, is looking cute and I might just have to let go of Bobby so I can go be with Jimbo. And God forbid I'm currently on a date with Bobby and I see some cute guy walking behind him and I'm checking him out. That is not wifey material. That is not wifey material. If you cannot sustain your attention on one person and have blinders on to all of the other guys that might physically be attractive, they might even be like cool, fun guys that you like their vibe and they're fun to hang out with, that doesn't matter. Wifey can keep her eyes on one person and just completely disregard all of those other guys that are walking by. But again, that was that part of me that wanted validation. It wanted to be chosen. It wanted to be picked. That, I already know that Bobby likes me, but I want to see if Jimbo over here likes me, because the more, it's like Pokemon. I just want to collect them all. I just want to be liked by everybody. I also, during these years of healing, had to heal my own fear of commitment. I have a fearful avoidant attachment style, which means you have both the anxious and the avoidant. And I've definitely leaned more anxious throughout my life, but since I was healing the anxious part, the avoidant part was kind of becoming more apparent. And so the reason why I couldn't sustain my attention to one person was because I had my own fear of commitment. And so I had to do a lot of journaling and meditating to figure out why, if a part of me so desperately wanted a relationship, why was there also this part of me that was scared of that? And it all stems down to the fear of pain, the fear of loss, that you're going to fall in love with somebody and that eventually they might leave you. They might break up with you. They might die. I might break up with them if things, don't work out. We end up not being compatible or we grow apart as the years go by. And that's scary. And so there's this part of me that was sabotaging any chance of a connection with someone who's actually a calm, stable, good guy, because I was afraid of what the future would hold if it would result in pain. So I had to heal that own fear of commitment to be able to settle down with someone who's actually good for me. And I was also in a pattern where I had more male friends than I did female friends. And these were not your typical male friends in the friendship kind of sense. They definitely had other intentions, if you know what I mean. And I was just living for the validation. Like, I could tell and I knew that they were attracted to me, but things weren't really like progressing to the romantic level. But I would just kind of keep them in my orbit and love talking to them. And it was so much easier for me to get along with men than it was for women. Like, men were just easy. You just turn on the charm and they grovel at your feet and they're fun. It's like they were more fun for me than female friendships because it was filling that empty cup that I had within. But since I'm straight and I'm not attracted to women, I wasn't getting that same level of magnetism and attraction and fun from women. With them, it was just purely a real, genuine friendship, which, can take more intentionality and time and effort to develop a genuine friendship with somebody. But with men, it was more surface level. It was more shallow. It was more based in this immediate attraction that we had for each other. And so it kind of bypassed that level of depth and realness that you would have with women. And let me tell you what, wifey does not have only male friends and no female friends. No guy is going to want to marry a woman whose orbit is completely surrounded by men who secretly want to get in her pants while she can't maintain a female friendship. That's just not wifey. That is not wifey. And I wish I could go back to my younger self and tell her that, because that's just absolutely ridiculous that I thought I was wife material when that was the kind of life that I was living. And of course, I had all these other amazing qualities. I I have a good job, I'm smart with my money, I cook and I clean and I communicate well and I'm fun and bubbly and just like all these things that you would love to have in a wife. But I wasn't the full package until I solved these components and got rid of that pick me energy. You can't be pick me if you want to be wifey. So what I did during those 4 years of healing is I realized I need to stop getting all this attention from men, this validation from men, and start fostering my female friendships. And so I made a decision that I was going to stop going on dates with men. I was going to cut out these friendships with men that clearly were not actually friendships and only hang out with women for an extended period of time. I set the goal for it to be about a year. It ended up being about 11 months before I met a guy naturally in the wild. We dated for a few months because intuitively it felt right to date this person. But for 11 months, I only hung out with women, and I actually created a friendship group and fostered my female friendships. And I learned just how deeply pivotal and important that is for a happy life, for a balanced life, to be a more interesting person, to have community, to have connections of people who aren't just there because they want to fuck you. And, spoiler alert, that's actually how I ended up meeting my boyfriend, was through one of my female friends. She invited me to her birthday party, and her now husband invited some of his friends too. And one of those people ended up being Justin, who's my boyfriend. So spoiler alert, it all worked out in the end. Totally hanging out with women. It didn't limit my chances in finding a man because I found him anyway at one of my girlfriend's birthday parties. In the beginning of my relationship with Justin, those fears were still definitely coming up. And anytime we hit another relationship milestone, I get spooked a little bit and the avoidance kind of comes to the surface and a lot of fears come up. But luckily I can recognize that. I don't live my life subconsciously going based off my fears, but I can recognize that it stems from avoidance, and I'll journal or talk to a therapist or do EFT, emotional freedom technique, the tapping. Shout out to Brad Yates, whose YouTube channel is all about EFT. He has so many videos that can help you heal all of these different types of emotional wounds. But this is something that Justin's very aware of, that I've been healing, and so he's also been very helpful and just such a stable grounding force in my relationship of helping me overcome the remaining layers of avoidance that come up, resisting the deepening of our love. But luckily, commitment was never something that I had an issue with him. I got to a point where I healed that pick-me energy, I healed that straying high energy, I healed that not wanting to give one person 100% of my energy, because who knows if there's somebody else out there who could be even better for me? What if Jimbo walking by? What if he's actually my soulmate and I'm wasting my time with this person? I had to get to a point of healing all that before I even met Justin, so that from the first date, I felt deeply committed to him. And it was such an interesting feeling. And a part of the reason why I kind of know that he's the one for me was even at the party that we met at, there were other people that if I met him when I was younger, I would definitely be trying to flirt with multiple people at this party, which is not a good look and is not what wifey would do. But when I met him, I didn't know that he was the one. We definitely had a slow burn relationship, but I knew that I was committed to him. And it was so unique and interesting. And I've never had an issue with that with him. I've never had an issue of just keeping my eyes on the prize, just giving him 100% of my energy and 100% of my intention. And, before we even became official, having both of my feet in and giving it a full shot. And even before we were exclusive, turning down other opportunities at dates that I was asked on because I wanted to be 100% in with him in a way that I never would have been capable of when I was younger if I didn't do all of this healing. So while the version of me 5 years ago thought she was ready for love, she really just wanted a relationship to validate that she was lovable. But I learned that I don't need a relationship to feel worthy. But now I have one. And it took getting to that point to manifest the man that I have now. So if you're out here trying to manifest love, don't rush the process. You might think that you're ready, but the universe has a way of making sure that you really are. And trust me, it's worth the wait. So I hope you enjoyed this little story about my life and that it helped you in some kind of way. If the universe hasn't brought you your person yet, there's a reason for it. And it's not because you're not worthy of love. You are completely worthy in my eyes, in the universe's eyes, and in your own eyes. There's a reason for this single chapter. And I know it can be so frustrating, but the key to getting rid of that frustration is surrendering. surrendering to the universe, surrendering to divine timing. And if you're curious what the hell that even means, because I know that's something the universe used to tell me a lot during this journey, is that I needed to surrender. And I'm like, I'm doing it. Stop telling me to surrender. But clearly that emotional reaction shows that I was not surrendering. If you want to learn what it means to surrender and how to just feel better, how to feel that contentment being single, how to feel that peace, I made a video all about that, which you can watch right over here, which I think will help you a lot in finding peace in this journey. So don't forget to check that out if you want help surrendering to the divine timing of the universe. And subscribe if you want more content about love or about spiritual life advice, mental health and well-being. I love just having lots of uplifting, positive vibes over here and just helping you balance your life and finding wellness, finding peace. So subscribe if you want to see some more of that. Like the video if you enjoy the story time. And until next time, I'm sending you so much love. Bye.